And so it is Bayern Munich who are marching on now to the quarter-finals. As for Harry Kane, this is some season that he has been having. When you look at all competitions, it's 50 games in total. And in those 50 games, we've seen 41 goals and 12 assists. He is unstoppable right now.
Right, but here's the problem I've got. And I'm going to be very facetious again.
Really?
Is that, Frankie, help me, is that goals tally, this is the problem I've got with this Club World Cup, amongst many things, is that goal tally, for those that care, going to last season's tally or next season's tally? Where are we standing in this, where is this Club World Cup? What we can't deny is his statistics, wherever he goes, are excellent. In fact, Ralf Rangnick was out recently, the Austrian coach who was coached around the world, and said Bayern made a big mistake signing Harry Kane. He's not the player for them, but his numbers would sort of scupper that. And again, he doesn't need to he just has to be in the right place at the right time. And you never lose that. He's not going to be the most mobile. He's not going to run the channels anymore, but he can still pass the ball. He still knows where the net is. He's still a clinical finisher, and he still understands how the game is played. So yeah, he's a big plus for them, but 41 goals this season, or are these goals the start of next season?
Yeah, well, that's been our question, hasn't it, Frank? But
you know, these
with
kind of things,
Muller still playing, maybe it is this season.
These kind of things, I'll be up at night. Frankie, I'll be awake at night going, it's Harry Kane, is the goals this...
But it's simple. It's simple, Craig. That's the end of the season. Simply because some players are still with their clubs and they're going to move after that competition.
Yeah.
Muller supposedly is going to retire. Leroy Sané is going to go to Galatasaray. Di Maria is going to go back to Argentina, and I forgot another one who's going to retire as well. And therefore, it's the end of the season, and the total goes for the 50 goals or the 50 games, and I don't know if it's 41 goals goes for the last season for Harry Kane.
Well, there's a better way to look at it. We just don't count the goals for the Club World Cup, and we count the goals in real competitions, like the Bundesliga, like the Pokal, like the Champions League.
Tell Harry Kane that goals don't count. A goal scorer will never listen to that.
I mean, he scored enough penalties for England to pad his numbers. He doesn't need to pad his numbers in the Club World Cup. But actually, on a serious note, that was a good test today. It was a good game. There was two good sides. Obviously, we've talked about the South American sides and how serious they're taking it. Big blow for them, clearly going 2-0 down. That's a big hurdle to come back against, even, against most sides, nevertheless playing Bayern Munich. So that was a big blow for them, but they got better as the game went on. They were a big threat. They got back into it. They played some good football. We've seen that during the tournament, but they just made a couple of mistakes at key moments in the time, and they allowed Bayern to press. They allowed Bayern to pressure when they tried to play out from the back. And they paid the ultimate price. But Flamengo have been good in this competition, but I just felt there Bayern Munich had another gear to go up, and I think we saw that in this game tonight.
What did you make of it, Frank?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. I think Flamengo did their best, and we have to give credit to them. But they found against them a very effective Bayern Munich. I think on the fourth goal, in fact, that was the third shot of Bayern Munich, because it was an own goal before. So how can we cannot say that Bayern Munich were very effective and they did what they had to do with a fantastic Harry Kane? I mean, the fourth goal, he doesn't even look where he is. He exactly knows where he is, where the goalkeeper is, and where the net is. So it's magnificent. But yeah, Bayern Munich were above my expectation, I have to say, because I thought they would go out, and they were very serious. But Flamengo, they did what they had to do, and I love watching them playing. I love the way they played. They were quite unfortunate at the beginning, but credit to them, they had a very good tournament.
Are we expecting that to be the centre-half pairing? I don't know, you do more Bundesliga than me. Are we expecting Jonathan Tah and Upamecano to be the pairing and Kim to be on the outside looking in, or is he? I don't know, because it's an area where if they're going to be successful again in the Bundesliga and be successful in the Champions League, which of course they were not last year, and that's something that the hierarchy at Bayern really judge themselves on. That's an area that they have kind of addressed with Jonathan Tah, who had a much better season the season before last. Obviously, the Bayer Leverkusen as a club, that he didn't have as good a season last year, but it's been an area where they need to address, and whether that's going to be enough in there to take them to the next level? I don't know. So it's going to be an interesting watch to see how a former centre-half himself and Vincent Kompany, who is the current head coach of Bayern, it's interesting to see if he can solve those issues via the training ground and via the new signings, and what his partnership is going to be. Because we know they'll create chances, we know they've got good wide players, we know when Musiala's playing, he's a great creative player. We also know they didn't get Florian Wirtz, who they reportedly wanted. He's gone to Liverpool, and we know Kane will score goals. There are some other issues within the side that they have to address, and the big question will be, is Jonathan Tah coming in, whoever he partners, is that going to be the answer to the issues that they've had for 2 or 3 years now, not just Vincent Kompany, but Thomas Tuchel before him? It was mistake after mistake after mistake, and it'll be interesting to see again whether Jonathan Tah is going to take this Bayern defence to the next level.
Yeah, the word is from Germany, Frank, that is the hope, that it would be Upamecano and Jonathan Tah.
Yeah, well, I think it's the best from what we have seen so far, and for the past 2 years with the recruitment of some questioning players, maybe not at the Bayern Munich expectation and level. So I think having Tah will make Bayern more solid. Upamecano, we've been questioning his talent. He is a talented player. He plays for the national team as well. But the consistency of his performances haven't been that good, and that good from what we have we would love to see. So if that pair works, I think it would be a better pair than the way I've seen in the past, you know, with some players coming. And I think about Dyer, for example, not really at the level that we want to see two centre-backs at Bayern Munich.
One side we won't be watching in the Club World Cup anymore is Inter Miami. They are out after getting beat 4-0 by PSG. PSG scoring all those 4 goals in the first 45 minutes. And these are the stats that we can bring you on the MLS side. Held without a shot in the first half of a match for the first time since 2023. First touch in the attacking penalty area came in the 49th minute. First shot in the 51st. And first shot on goal not until past the hour mark, the 63rd minute. So let's get some reaction from the Inter Miami camp.
Creo que hemos competido bien, sinceramente por encima de las expectativas que tenía la gente. A mi entender hemos sido mejores en los 3 partidos de grupo, a todos los rivales, y luego hoy obviamente estábamos contra el mejor equipo del mundo ahora mismo que practica el fútbol y era difícil, ¿no? Pero pese a ello creo que hemos competido la primera parte, sobre todo también la segunda, que hemos tenido pues más control del partido, hemos tenido más llegadas, le hemos creado muchos más problemas al PSG, pero nada que reprochar, ¿no? Y al final pues, las reglas son las reglas en la MLS.
En conclusión, orgulloso de lo que han hecho o lo que ha hecho este grupo de jugadores, y nada, de ahora en adelante mirar hacia el futuro y ver si logramos rentabilizar toda esta experiencia, como hablábamos quizás un poco ayer, para lo que son las competiciones más domésticas nuestras y más normales, y donde nosotros quizás las expectativas son otras.
Frank's still with us, Alexis Nunes with us as well. Alexis was at the game, but let me just get some reaction from you, if I can, Craig. The feeling from the Inter Miami camp is that they're proud of what they've achieved here.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, because they were competitive in this group stage. They just got a hammering in today's game, and but for PSG making changes and taking the foot off the gas, they could have run the tables. That's sort of where they are, and they have not disgraced themselves. But what they don't need to do is come out and make excuses about. And Jordi Alba was talking about the rules of MLS, and as if when he arrived here he didn't know what the rules of MLS, or he should have done, what the rules and regulations about signing players and salary caps and whatnot. And then Mascherano or Inter Miami talking about, well, you know, we're in the top 16 clubs in the world. I mean, statements like that make a mockery. You know, Auckland City are in the tournament. There's 32 teams. Auckland City, are they the 32nd best team in the world? Barcelona are not here. Liverpool are not here. Half of Spain's not here. Half of Italy's not here. Half of England, half of Germany. So it just makes a mockery. Again, it's this necessity to try and push a narrative rather than just say, you know, because we know that they're not in the top 50 teams in the world, probably, if we're being honest about it, whether they've got Lionel Messi or not. But just stop trying to push this narrative where, you know, people will be on the street going, hey, listen to what he said, we're in the top 16. You are not, and you are nowhere near it. But what you have done is at least, and by the way, you shouldn't have been in the competition in the first place. You're only in the competition because Lionel Messi is at Inter Miami. If Lionel Messi was not at Inter Miami, you'd be sitting on the sofa at home watching the damn thing. But at least they have made a decent fist of the group stages, which Seattle did not. They got hammered. And so that's one thing. But I think what they got today was a glimpse of what top team football is all about. And PSG are a team. They have marvellous individuals, but they're a very good team, which Luis Enrique has conjured up. And I think Inter Miami saw that in bucket loads today, that to get to that kind of level, or even close to that kind of level, they're a long way off.
Yeah, talking of the storylines coming out of the game, Alexis, something that I've seen more than once is those saying that it felt more like a pre-season friendly than a competitive match. You were there. How did you see it?
Yeah, you know, Kay, honestly, it didn't start like that, but the way the first half was going, I mean, Javier Mascherano said it in his post-match press conference, and he said that first half was a bloodbath. And then I remember I did predict 4-0 yesterday on the show, but the way things were going, especially when Inter Miami found themselves chasing the game already with just 6 minutes in on the clock, I remember thinking, ooh, this could get very ugly very, very quickly. And look, PSG could have scored more as well. Yes, we heard from Sergio Busquets talking about how they took the game to them more, and they're quite proud of what they did in the second half. They obviously had no other choice but to try and get something out of the game. But I also think PSG making 6 changes, yes, it was good to see Dembele, but we also know that he is just getting fit again and getting back into the game. I feel like they kind of switched off a little bit and let Inter Miami probably just have a go. They pretty much had already won the game by then. And honestly, I mean, Javier Mascherano said it perfectly. He said, look, now it is clear to see the difference between the two sides. It's obvious that there are oceans in between these two sides. And yesterday when we were talking to them, the whole vibe was to try and put out as much of a competitive game as they can. Because at the end of the day, they weren't naive. They knew 100% that this was PSG, the most informed and best team, not just in Europe, but in the world right now. And they knew that it was always going to be a tough ask for them. And you could even tell from Messi, we saw how frustrated he was in that last group game where they could have finished top against Palmeiras. He does not like to lose. This time, he was still all smiles at the end. He was saying hi to his older teammates. He was exchanging shirts. I think even he was resigned to the fact that they were simply no match for PSG today.
What do you want to say, Frank?
Oh, so many things. First, that when you are called Inter, it's not good to play against Paris Saint-Germain. That's the first thing.
It wasn't 5 though, hey, Frank.
Second, yeah, but, you know, I'm going to talk about it, you know, because there are much to say. What can I say? I think Porto didn't play it seriously. And that's not very nice to that competition, but you have the right to think that it's only a friendly game, that you have some friendly games that you're going to play. But it would have been a different story if Porto would have taken it seriously. After, I don't buy it, Mr. Jordi Alba. When you say second half we were better. No. Paris Saint-Germain didn't respect you. They stopped playing. Otherwise it could have been a Bayern Munich Auckland. It could have been a 10-0. You didn't touch the ball. They score 4 goals in the first half and they stopped playing because that was already done. So I say like 2 days ago that it could be a slap in the face. Yeah, and you were there, Kay, in the studio. It was a slap in the face for the MLS. That's a wake-up call. If you want to be performant, you have to stop your rules if you want to evolve in the football competitions everywhere. So Paris Saint-Germain showed that the MLS is so far away from, as Alexis said, kind of an ocean between the two teams. But it's more than that. It's more than that. If Paris Saint-Germain would have played 100% for 90 minutes, it could have been awful for the MLS. So again, it's a wake-up call because a nation like United States cannot have kind of its best team you know, being slapped in the face by Paris Saint-Germain.
So there's a bigger test.
The thing is, I'm a little sick and tired of all this continuing trying to gauge yourself against other leagues and elite level leagues, because when you run your shop in the manner in which they do, and it's a closed shop, there's no promotion relegation, there's no pyramid system, you have caps, you have all these other things. There's no point in trying to gauge yourself by bringing in a couple of superstars to some of the teams. There's just not. So when you run the business the way you do, you have to accept that you're going to be where you are. You have to accept that. And there's no point continuing to fight this fight about we're going to be this and we're going to be that and we're going to be better than... Because you're not. Because you do it your way. And for Major League Soccer, the way they do it, they like that. And they're expanding and they get big stadiums and their stadiums are excellent and they get good crowds and all that. But this continue of trying to reach out to be in an argument to say, well, we could compete with the Premier League and we could compete with Germany and Italy. It just stop. You have decided to run the business for many, many years now the way you do it. And that's going to be successful for you, but that's going to leave you pigeonholed in this scenario that when these competitions come around, or, you know, the MLS All-Stars play one of the European, whatever it is, pre-season friendly, you're just going to leave yourself open. And we saw that, we've seen that with some Major League Soccer sides. We've seen it quite a lot in the CONCACAF Champions League for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, the sort of Mexican teams are way stronger. So it's a kind of scenario that they're in, and I kind of get fed up just listening and hearing now to all this, but comparing yourselves. Just don't compare it, accept what you are. You run your shop the way you do. The European and the other teams around the world run it their way, and they're better for the most part. And that's the end story here. These teams are just better, and you run your business the way you run your business. And until that changes, which is not going to for a long time, then nothing will change on the football field.
Yes, next up for PSG, it is Bayern though, Frank. That's a repeat of the 2020 Champions League final, but you think this is going to go PSG's way this time?
Yeah, I think so. Bayern have been more solid than I expected. As I said before when I was analyzing the game that they just had with Flamengo. But I don't see any team, or maybe Manchester City, maybe capable of competing with Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, the first half that they had against Inter, but also when they played against Atletico Madrid, showed me that when they won, keep the fourth gear, they're unbeatable. And Bayern Munich, yeah, we talked about the defense, the centre-backs and blah, blah, blah. They're not ready, for me, to cope with Paris Saint-Germain. Now it's a football game, everything's possible. But if you ask me for a prediction, yeah, I see Paris Saint-Germain going through.
All right, Enzo Maresca was fuming after Chelsea's 2-hour Club World Cup weather delay. We'd seen Reece James score the goal, then play stopped. He said US is probably not the right place to host the tournament. He and Reece James had this to say after the match.
I think for me personally it's no football. It's already 7, 8, 9 games that they suspended here. I think it's a joke, to be honest. It's no football.
We got to 85 minutes and then had to sit and wait for, I don't know, a long period. And it's quite disruptive, you know, when you're in the flow of the game. Lots of substitutions, you know, trying to get warm and stay warm. You know, it was difficult. The climate was, you know, very hot and humid, and the pitch probably wasn't the greatest as well.
I'm talking as a manager, because when you are 2 hours inside and you try to keep them in the game, but for 2 hours, they are speaking with the family outside for safety reason. They are eating something, they are playing, they are laughing. How you can keep them 2 hours inside focus? It's a joke. I can understand that for security reason, you have to suspend the game. But if you suspend 7, 8 games, that means that probably is not the right place to do this competition.
The storms and bad weather have now caused 6 games, all held in different cities, to be suspended during the tournament. This, the longest of them, Benfica against Chelsea, a game that kicked off at 9 p.m. local time and finished at 1:40 a.m. the following day.
To be fair, looking at some of those games, people would be happy if they were just called off full time, wouldn't they? He's turned into an angry man, isn't he, Enzo Maresca? At the end of the season, he was telling journalists to F you, and he's been angry since he's got here. And I think there's some sort of vibe here. Because, you know, I don't like to see other people angry like myself, but when he was managing Leicester City, this is true. When he was managing Leicester City, Enzo Maresca and his family rented my house out in the Midlands. And I'd feel that when he entered into that property, he was probably the happiest man on the planet. And there's some sort of vibe in that house.
Bad energy.
There's an energy and a vibe in that house, clearly, that just turns anybody that goes in there into the most miserable, angry, upset at everything man in the world. And he's turned into that.
He's not joking, by the way. This is actual, real information.
Well, I don't know about the energy in the house.
No, not the energy.
But he did. Yeah, he was. And he was a very pleasant chap and paid his rent on time, thankfully. But he has turned into, and I think he was a little angry when he was at Leicester when they were promoted, because they struggled at the second half of the season and he got a bit of stick from the Leicester fans, believe it or not, and they won the league. He's entered a new arena now, hasn't he, at Chelsea, where, you know, there was possibilities that they would not make the top 4 last year, or the top 5, which they did. There was a little bit of questioning from the media about his tactics, about the squad, and about this, and he got very angry about it. So he's in a different arena now, isn't he? He's in an arena where managing Chelsea, everything's been questioned. But again, I'll go back to this. He could win this competition, and it will matter not a job. Because what Todd Bowley and the Chelsea fans and all the sort of investors at Chelsea will look at is how they improve next year, particularly in the Champions League and in the Premier League. And this is just a build-up for him. But he's so sort of tense and hyped up now that I can fear to see what he's going to be like if the wheels don't turn properly at Chelsea in the season. And that's where he's going to be judged this year, and he knows that.
He was successful when he was renting your house, so have you not got an apartment for rent in London for him? That might be the answer.
On my salary? Oh, Smogs, I don't think
now,
so.
Alexis, I know you haven't been at any of these games where there's been a weather delay, but I know you've spoken to some of the people in and around the teams about it.
Yeah, Kay, and honestly, I agree with Enzo Maresca as well. But also remember, he is Italian, so that spicy side does come out. Kay, I know you know that very well. But look, he's absolutely right. I mean, it has been frustrating, not just for the players, not just for the technical staff around them, not just for the managers, but even for us, the journalists and the fans who we keep talking about so much in this tournament, the fans who FIFA and everyone are desperate to fill these seats so that it looks good on TV, so that we can get an idea of what kind of turnouts we will get next year at the World Cup, which is when all of this really matters, let's be honest. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the United States isn't the perfect host for these kind of tournaments. I would probably say certain places, certain stadiums, and certain states maybe not the right host for these. Look, we know Florida, there's a lot of open-air stadiums there. We have had, and we're probably going to get some more weather here in Atlanta right now. And when it rains, and it pours, and the lightning starts to come. But obviously, it helps with the domed stadiums. And I'm not saying every stadium has to be one. I know that can also affect the pitch and the grass and everything. But also, when we were for Manchester City's game against Juventus, it started pouring and the fans just had to run for cover. Some ran back to their cars, leaving at halftime because they were just thinking, look, this really isn't worth it. And Orlando, of course, Florida, we know how flat it is. When the lightning comes, it's going to be a delay of who knows how long. And overall, it just creates such a frustrating situation for everyone to watch and everyone to be involved in. So that's definitely something that I think FIFA should be thinking about when we consider the World Cup next year.
So what they're moaning about, though, is it the kick-off times or is it the weather?
I think it's the weather delay. And
you can't control the weather.
You can change the pitches. It's going to be these same stadiums next year. That's something you can't
Yeah, but the weather
control.
changes. The weather's not... Sometimes it pours down, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's lightning, sometimes some states get tornadoes, some don't. You know, you can't just judge it. You can't say, right, the World Cup's coming partly to America in a year's time. We can't play it this time because the weather's going to be this. We don't know. You just don't know.
Well, they changed the Qatar World Cup, didn't they, to a different time of the year?
Well, that's because it's
Yeah, but
that's because it's unplayable. Unplayable in the summer at that temperature. Look, if anybody watches golf, anybody watches the PGA Tour, it goes around the country. Sometimes tournaments go swimmingly. And other times, a storm comes in and they have flash flooding and they have to get supporters off or they have to get the players off and then they resume. You cannot... And what are they going to do? Take the PGA Tour to Europe? What are they going to do? They play every weekend, they play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it's not. You cannot always just go in the weather. Maybe kick-off times could allow better for it if there's a delay and it's not 1 o'clock in the morning. But that's then a problem slotting your TV in for games being on at different times and then globally, your global TV audience. It's very difficult. And I'm no FIFA fan and I'm no UEFA fan. You know that. But it's very, very difficult here. You're trying to keep all your partners happy. You're trying to keep all the countries happy. You're trying to make sure as many people, and I'm talking about a World Cup, not a Club World Cup, because I couldn't give a toss about that. When the World Cup comes, it's about trying to get as many people to watch it as possible and have the balance right with safety of the supporters and have the weather conditions as good as you can. The problem is there's very few places in the world you can take any sort of sporting event and have a perfect scenario. And I think we've had a very unusual scenario this year in America, particularly in the East Coast, with some of the weather we've had in the last 10 days or so. It's not normal, it's brought more storms in, and it's been unfortunate. That is not to say, and by the way, when the World Cup comes, guess what? It'll rain. And it'll pour. And if you don't like it, sod off. But it'll pour. And you play in the rain. You can't play in lightning, you can't play in something that's more severe. But it will rain and you will have to adjust to it. But you can't sit here and say the World Cup's going to be a disaster because this storm's going to come in and that storm's going to come in. Because maybe it won't. We just do not know. This tournament, thus far, it's been unfortunate. It's happened. It's not ideal. But I think come the World Cup, it could be a completely better scenario. If we're just talking about weather, kick-off times, that's something different.
What do you think about Maresca saying that then, Frank, that perhaps it's not the right place to play a World Cup, the US?
Now, even if I understand what he means, because I guess for 2 hours it's hard to keep the players ready to carry on, but the two teams are in the same problematics at that time, and he's not going to be the only one. If he wants to criticize something, he has to criticize the competition, because what's going to happen to those clubs who are involved now, especially the one in Europe, for the next season? Are they going to be tired? Are they going to have many players injured? Let's see. But so far, the only thing you can criticize is that competition. But I just want to remind that in 2002, the World Cup in Korea and Japan have been held months before because of the monsoon. So it already happened, and you just mentioned Qatar. So you can deal a little bit, but that's a World Cup next season, and you want to see a World Cup in different locations. We cannot always play in Europe because we are in a better weather condition. And I'm so happy that so far we cannot control the weather. But really, yeah, Mr. Maresca, be focused on something a little bit more interesting, because you cannot deal with that, and you are not the only one. And it's nice to play in the US, in Japan, I don't know, in Qatar before the World Cup before. That's interesting. That's for us in Europe, and as players, also former players, it's nice to be there. So don't do a European thing. It's not worth it.
I was in Donetsk in 2012 with John Champion, actually. Working for ITV Sport in England, and the Ukraine-France game, I believe it was halfway through the game, and we had a major storm come in, and the game, I think it was off for half an hour or 45 minutes. We had to go back to the studio, and they had to fill. It's not an ideal scenario. Look, they had a World Cup here in '94, and my memory's not great. I don't think it was the greatest World Cup, but they had a World Cup here. They learned about the kick-off times, the heat, and the whatnot. These things as a player, it's what makes you stronger. It's when you go to these major tournaments, I'm talking about next year, it's the things that you have to deal with. For the players, it's okay. You go in the dressing room. It's not ideal. But you go in the dressing room, and when it all clears up, you come back out, you do your warm-up, you play. The bigger problem is, obviously, when I think, is when there's 90, 100,000 people and something really bad comes in. That's where the issue. The players will have to deal with it, and it's what the adversity throws at you at major tournaments, and it's how you deal with it is generally how you advance in these tournaments. I honestly think come next year, I don't think it's going to be a major problem. I think we'll see some small pockets, but I don't think it's going to destroy, absolutely not, the World Cup in this country.
That's a good segue, actually, talking about crowd sizes, Alexis, because it's 25,000 yesterday in Charlotte. What did you see in this game today? Was it growing crowds for you now that we're getting further into the tournament?
Yeah, honestly, towards the end of the game, the crowd, I would say the capacity of this stadium is about 71,000, and the official number that we got was about 65,000, and I thought that was pretty accurate. At the beginning, it did look a bit scanty because I do remember going downstairs to get something and noticing that there was still quite a lot of people at the gates that they were not getting in. I think they're still having some technical issues with how people are scanning tickets and getting in. They're getting used to the technology, and that is causing a hold-up usually in the first half. I know for sure a lot of people missed that first PSG goal, but once halftime came and the second half, the stadium definitely filled up nicely. So the crowds definitely are getting better for something like Lionel Messi facing a star-studded PSG as well, newly crowned Champions League winners. Definitely drew the crowd as well. Now no Leo Messi or Luis Suarez left in the competition, but still some pretty big names that we're expecting more fans to turn out for, but still not quite the sold-out full-capacity stadiums as yet.
Yeah, as yet. Okay, thank you so much, Alexis. Great to talk to you as always. More Club World Cup action coming up. And Alexis will be at more games as the tournament continues. Monday, we've got Inter against Fluminense and Man City against Al Hilal. On Tuesday, it's Real Madrid taking on Juventus and Dortmund against Monterrey. All matches streaming live on DAZN. So while Chelsea are enduring weather delays in the Club World Cup, they've been very active in the transfer window. We know that Liam Delap is already in, and now according to reports it will be Jamie Gittins and Joao Pedro who will be following him. Joao Pedro expected to be next, in fact could be flying to the US to have the medical and join up with the Club World Cup squad. We talked about Gittins the other day, so let's talk more about Joao Pedro.
You don't want to talk about Kepa?
Well, wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
How much they paid him?
Yeah, do you know what stuck out in that graphic to me like an absolute, like a sore thumb? Like it was flashing. Was I think they paid about 70, I might be wrong, about £75 million, euros,
Yeah.
whatever it was, not dollars. About 75 million thereabouts for Kepa from Spain. And it said on that graphic, 5 million sale. That's hardly getting your money back, is it?
80 million euro, apparently.
80 million
Yeah.
euro. It's about 75 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's 5 million. Oh, that's
2018, yes.
a blow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
Joao
But if you
Pedro.
wouldn't mind, it would be nice to talk about Joao Pedro.
It does. You want? I mean, I just thought. I just noticed that.
Are you happy with that signing? If it's to go ahead, Frank.
I have to say I'm happy. I watched him playing, and every time I saw him playing, he impressed me. Now again, the question mark will be how you can handle a different pressure coming from Brighton to Chelsea. We thought that even with Cucurella the first year, and we saw that so many times where some players have a hard time, settling down. Even if they know the Premier League, it's not the same club, it's not the same atmosphere, and you have to be good because you are in a big competition with other players, and you are surrounded by other unexperienced players at that level. And that's my bigger question. As long as the club doesn't change its way of thinking the football and how to build the squad, I will always have the same question marks. How come when you come from another club, you handle it because you have no supports from experienced players, and that's crucial. When I came from Chelsea, we had Dennis Wise, we had Craig, we had Mark Hughes, we had Dan Petrescu, Ruud Gullit. That was an experienced club, even if Chelsea wasn't the Chelsea that we have known after. But we had young players and we were surrounded by experienced players, and Chelsea doesn't have that.
If you're thinking about what kind of player Joao Pedro is and you haven't seen as much of Brighton as probably we have, technically he's a very good player. But it begs the question, what do Chelsea want and what does Enzo Maresca want? Because if he wants a striker that's, he's technically better than Nico Jackson. I don't think there's any doubt about that from a technical aspect. But if Chelsea are looking for a kind of Harry Kane-esque striker that stands his ground in the number 9 position and is it what we would call a penalty box striker who's waiting for the scraps, then that's not Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro is a front man who can play, in 2 or 3 positions in the front, but when he plays in the number 9 role, he drifts around. He doesn't just play that number 9 and post up in the middle and wait for that ball to come into his feet. If you watch him, he drifts out to the wider position, he drifts deep into midfield, he drifts out to the left. He likes to go wandering around a little bit. And whether Chelsea will try and change that, because Danny Welbeck played a lot for Brighton through the middle. And maybe they played as a pair at times with Joao Pedro a little bit deeper. But he's not a static front man. He likes to drift around into different positions. And whether that is something that Enzo Maresca wants, or whether Maresca wanted an out-and-out number 9 that was just going to hit the ball off his shin into the back of the net and get 35 goals a year, I don't know. Because I don't think, and if you even looked at the graphic that came up, he's not that kind of player. His stats are good, but they're not. And he's quite young, he's 23 still. His stats are good, but they're not mind-blowing in terms of goals. So I don't think they're getting a natural goal scorer per se, but they're getting a link-up player who's very physical, who will run at defenders, but he will drift out into those wide areas. And it's whether Chelsea can get runners from midfield or got the wider guys to come in and supplement that. I don't know. Good player, I think a step up from Nico Jackson. But if you think you're getting a natural number 9 that's just going to hang about looking to score goals, then I don't think he's that player.
How do they all play together? There's players coming in, they're obviously doing what they need to do. They're beating out other teams to get the signatures of some of these players. How do they all play together?
Well, I tell you what, I don't know how he's going to play this year. He could throw Liam Delap up there and do what Brighton did a little bit and play Joao Pedro just a little deeper off him. And that would be 2 very physical players that they would have sort of in that front area. Now, he would have to maybe change the shape a little bit if he's playing with 2 wide guys and take a midfielder out. So I don't know what he's going to do. Joao Pedro will give him some sort of flexibility because he can do both roles. Liam Delap cannot. He's a front guy. That's what he is. That's kind of the only job he will do, and he will run and he'll fight and he will do all that. Joao Pedro's got that physicality, but he's got a bit more subtlety about his game. I think he's technically better as well. So, obviously Gittins coming in and will give him options in the wider areas. Mykhailo Mudryk look as if he's going to be out, but I don't think that's a big blow in terms of financially. It's going to be a blow how Chelsea deal with it. In terms of football, I don't think they're going to miss a lot. Obviously, Jadon Sancho, that's been a problem. Didn't work out as they wanted. Nono Madueke has certainly put his arm up to be one of the wide players. Pedro Neto on the other side. So he has some options, but I think what it is going to do, I think, is probably relegate Nico Jackson to I think where he should be, certainly at Chelsea, which is a player who's going to play when needed and come off the bench.
Frankie, you get the final thought here.
Well, there are lots of players. Sorry, I hear myself. Sorry. There are lots of players, at the front, and it can be an issue, and it's hard for young players to feel that competition between them and to handle it. It would be interesting to see, for me, Madueke on the right side, maybe Delap as a real striker, and Joao Pedro around with just behind them Cole Palmer. That could be very interesting.
Gold Cup quarterfinals are underway, and there's only one left to go because Guatemala have just upset Canada today. Later on, it will be United States taking on Costa Rica, and the winner of that game will be facing Guatemala in these semi-finals. And the other side, it's Mexico against Honduras. Now, as was discussed on the show, there were some rumours that the US men's national team coach Mauricio Pochettino had been interviewed by Premier League club Brentford. Gabriele Marcotti said that was inaccurate. And this is what the man himself, Mauricio Pochettino, had to say. He said, this club never contacted me, and never talked to them. Extra time here on ESPN FC. Craig's got his Tic Tacs.
Tic Tacs. I don't know why I bought them.
No.
I haven't bought Tic Tacs.
Show me.
Frank's.
Tic Tacs, I love it.
Tic Tacs, Frank.
Yeah, I haven't bought Tic Tacs for a long time. The honesty calf that we have here, one of the honesty calves, which is only for very honest people, obviously, and there's cameras in there. It's very lacking in choice, shall I say.
The one closest to us is, there is a better option a bit further, but you have to walk
Yeah, I have
further.
to walk.
Yeah.
And I just saw the Tic Tacs and I thought, it's the kind of life I lead. It's exciting for me.
Very excited. Tic Tacs, Frank. Very, very exciting.
Do you have them in France, Frankie?
Oh, yes. My wife bought me one of these, the yellow, the orange and yellow in it, or green, I remember. But I'm a big fan of Fisherman and Friends.
Fisherman
You know,
Friends.
Fisherman's friends.
What do they do, by the way?
Yeah, I love them.
Don't you take them when you're...
They're just very, very strong.
They are,
right?
aren't they?
Very, very strong mints.
Right, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. In fact, the story of that is because fishermen, they needed to get them some mint in order to not throwing up when they were high waves, in the sea. So they say, don't forget your friends.
Frank, we don't want to be
Don't forget
too...
your friends. So
We don't want to take too long.
Okay.
No, I'm
It's
just
late.
saying this, right, because...
It's late, okay.
No, we don't want to do it because our
go on.
producer is also tonight is producing Football Americas.
Oh.
And I'm really getting the feeling that his boss doesn't like him.
Silence in
That's
my
a
ear,
message.
which is probably
Not because he's doing Football Americas, not because of that show, because he's double dipping.
making them work a lot.
Now, back in the day, the heyday, he would have stood his ground and said, no. No. But these days, he buckles. So he's doing that show tonight, as well as this. Long day, even for a man that doesn't like going home. We know that. So we should keep this short.
We will. We've been getting a lot of inside information from you today here on ESPN FC, and this continues. More
What, with the
inside talk
Maresca?
here. The Maresca, renting your house.
Yeah,
and there was
did.
something else a little bit later on. Yes.
There was something else.
Breaking for storms when you were with John Champion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the
you know,
Euros.
can't have a World Cup in
Studio
America.
Phil,
It
yeah.
can't have a World Cup in America. It rains.
All right, so we'll see what else we're going to hear from Craig. First question is for you. Who's the best golfing footballer you've had the pleasure of a round with?
Me.
I mean, he is very, very good.
Actually, well, I wasn't. I'm. Yeah, I've never played with anybody. I probably at the time, the best golfer I played with at the time, because I at that point a few years ago, I was not the handicap I am now. When I was still living in England, was my old Scottish national team captain, former Leeds United, Liverpool, Coventry, and Scotland player Gary McAllister. Gary was a 4 or a 5 at the time. Very good player. Don't remember. And Kevin Hitchcock, my best man, the former goalkeeper, he was I think a 6 handicapper. But I think Macker was probably the best. I've never played with a soccer player that was a scratch,
Right.
like a 0. Although Stevie...
I did.
Yeah. Who?
Alain Bogossian, the former Parma, Marseille, Napoli player, crazy. He started after his career to play golf.
Yeah.
A year after, he was scratched, and he was the national team coach of the youth golf national team coach, national team golf team. That was crazy. In 1 year, he became scratch. Unbelievable player.
Here's an American angle for you, if indeed you want that angle. I didn't play with this guy, golf, but when I was a youngster at Chelsea, and I mean a youngster, 16, 17, there was an American player trying to make his way at Chelsea at the time called Roy Wegerle. Very talented player, Roy. Ended up, I think, at QPR, and I don't know where he went after that. Didn't quite work out. And Roy was a very talented footballer, but he was a superbly talented golfer. And he tried after when his career finished in soccer, he tried to make his way onto the tour. The Challenge Tour or the Corn Ferry Tour and into the PGA Tour. So I don't think he managed to do it because that's like an amazing, these guys are just off the chart. But Roy was such a good golfer that he gave himself the chance to go and try and do that. But I never played with him.
Last question from me. Did you start playing golf when you started playing football, or were you already playing it when you were
No, I was
younger?
playing a little 9-hole course when I was a kid with my dad, but I wasn't playing very often and I wasn't very good, but he used to drag me up. So yeah, I sort of, particularly in Scotland, he sort of grew up with golf, you know, but I didn't play as much when I was still playing. Frank and that was at Chelsea, until I stopped playing professionally and went into the TV and radio. That's when I started to play a lot of golf.
Right. Chelsea striker, start, bench or sell? Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, Nicholas Jackson.
Go on, Frank.
According to what we saw last season, I would say Delap, Pedro, and Jackson.
That bench drop. I'd start Joao Pedro, I'd bench Liam Delap, and I would sell Nico Jackson.
Okay. Frank, Zidane ended his career after winning the best player of 2006 World Cup. We don't have any memory of him being outplayed or humiliated by younger and hungrier opponents. Don't you think Cristiano and Messi should have stopped at the top instead of extending their careers at Saudi and MLS?
Well, no, it's no way to criticize, Cristiano and Messi. I think they love football. I guess they love money as well. And but I think they didn't finish their way to the football. They really dedicated to that. It's another era. I don't know why Zizou stopped at that time, because he could have carried on and be very good. But see Kroos finishing last season, where he could have carried on and do very good thing for football. Everybody, again, is individual and decides whatever he wants. But I always say it's better to stop when you are at the top. But you cannot consider that Messi and Ronaldo, they're not at their top. They're not the player they were, but it's still very effective. And we still see the lights on them, because they keep on scoring goals and being good. Ronaldo still plays for Portugal, and they just won the National League, European National League. I don't know how you call that.
UEFA.
And Messi does well. Every game he plays, that's full. Exactly. So I think, and they've never been humiliated by younger players. They're still very good. There's nothing much to say.
People don't. I think that a lot of people don't understand. There's it's the same in life. Everybody's different. And if we're all the same, life would be boring. So you have these players and what you have to understand is what you see is what you see on the field on a weekend, generally, or on TV. What you don't see is the grind behind the scenes, which all sports people have to do. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. It's the same for everybody. There's a grind away from the public spectacle of the event. And some players want to continue with that grind leading up to a weekend, and other players have had enough. Some want to go out at the top, like Toni Kroos. Some just can't do it anymore, and you don't want that grilling and grueling training every week leading up to it. And maybe people like Messi and Ronaldo, they thrive on it. Getting in that car at 8:30 in the morning, whatever it is, driving to training, bruised and sore and stiff as you would be in your 30s or early 40s as Ronaldo is, and picking yourself up and training. And if you want to do that late in your career, it doesn't matter if you're getting paid a lot of money or not, that's fair play. But a lot of guys just don't want to do it because it's just pain. And so everybody's different, It's like some people just have enough and go, do you know what? I haven't got the desire to do that anymore. And others would play to their 50 if they could. Just the way it is.
For the gents,
I talked to I talked to some players, whether they were regretting stopping, ending up their career. And I was fed up. But I talked to, for example, Emmanuel Petit, my best friend with the national team. He always said, that he got injured, so he had to stop. So it's always something that he regrets because he didn't see the end of it. And I'm with Craig. Some players, and I was one of those, after 17 years, you don't want to go training, you don't want to force, you don't want to feel the pain, you fed up.
Okay.
It's like Stevie, isn't it?
Stevie loved it, didn't he?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I was like Frank, I hated it in the end. I absolutely, because like Frank, we played in the World Cup, Frank won the World Cup. You may have noticed, you may have remembered, Frank won.
Missed that.
That World Cup that he won and I played in, and we played in the European Championships, we played in cup finals, and Frank had success at Chelsea, I had success at Celtic, winning the league title, first time in 10 years with a great bunch of lads, and you couldn't wait to get in. Could not wait to get to the training ground and play the next match because you're good. And then there's a point that comes along and you go, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, you're like that. And when you're in that mindset, you cannot perform for your team. When it gets to that stage where you go, I hate this. I absolutely hate it. And I hate who I am because you've had all these operations. And Stevie, and he's not the only one, there are players like this, he just wanted to keep going. So he was at this standard, he was at the top of the tree at Liverpool. European Cups, Premier League as it is now, FA Cup finals, you name it, they were doing it. And you would have thought he would have been, I'm not playing down there, because I've played up there, but yet he was, and I'm not blowing smoke here, but he just wanted to keep going, like, he loved it. But if he hated it, he would not have went to the teams he went to if he'd hated it.
Yeah, in the lower leagues.
He would not have. But he didn't, he loved it. But then that's just the difference in mentality. And we know his mentality.
We do, very well. For the gents, which had a more positive impact on PSG? Was it Luis Enrique or dumping the ego boys, as it says here, Mbappe, Messi and Neymar? Which was the more positive impact, Frank?
I really think that if those three would have stayed at Paris Saint-Germain, never Luis Enrique would have been capable of winning the Champions League. That's a fact, that's a statement. I mean, it's very hard to compose with those players because you have to create the squad or the team around those players. And the way Luis Enrique wanted to play with those players, that would have been impossible, and he showed it. Getting rid of them, well, leaving allowed and opened a door to Luis Enrique to express his talent. So I would say dumping, even if he didn't dump anybody, Mbappe, Messi and Neymar was the best thing for Paris Saint-Germain.
But surely Luis Enrique was part of that process.
It's all linked anyway.
I think it is interlinked because although I don't know the exact timing of when the other two left, but certainly Mbappe, and I think he has gone, or he went to the board or the ownership and said, listen, this is what we need to do. This is the way we need to go to be a better team. And I honestly think if they had not been on board with what he was doing, bearing in mind what he's been through in his personal life in the last few years, I honestly think he would have, if they were not in tune with him, I think he would have walked. But they clearly backed him with his decisions, and there's no denying it worked out as better than they could have expected.
Yes, and all's well that ends well. That is the end of Extra Time tonight. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. Thanks to the guys for sharing.
Thanks to Tic Tac.
Inside information.
I'm not sponsored by them.
Bye-bye, Tic Tac.
I'm probably going to get in trouble now. Get an email tonight saying, can't do that in the show.
We all got the white memo as well, though, tonight, didn't we?
Yeah, and that was just,
So yeah, that's the end. Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again.